I want to pivot to the concept of de-dollarization here, because there's one concept, Andy, that you've been covering more than anybody else that I follow, and that is Project mBridge. It's now a term that gets thrown around a lot in conversations on channels like mine. I wonder how many investors actually understand what the significance of Project mBridge is and what it's competitive to. And so if you could, at a high level, just walk the audience through the trajectory of Project mBridge and what's on the table today, what it is exactly.
Yeah, so many of the things, Jay, that I think are so important about the future of the dollar and the trajectory of the country are not reported or talked about. mBridge is something I've talked about in, I bet you, 100 YouTube videos over the last year and a half. It is a cross-border, decentralized platform for payments and foreign exchange transactions in digital currencies, central bank digital currencies. And it was developed by China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates. And it's backed by the BIS. And I want to phrase it that way for just one moment so people can understand where I'm going with this. But it is a platform that allows for trading of central bank digital currencies with one another. Now, I've been saying for a very long time that it's my belief that gold and oil have been remonetized globally. You can see oil in the fact that Iran awarded China a massive remodernization contract to remodernize their biggest airport, paid for it $2 billion worth of oil instead of US dollars. There's your de-dollarization. And of course, gold, as we know, the only other tier one reserve asset, is being gobbled up by the central banks at levels the world has never seen. Now, I think it's important when we talk about mBridge to understand that Saudi Arabia just became a full participant. So you have the original participants, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, United Arab Emirates. You have the BIS backing it, and you have 25 countries that are observers. And then there's Saudi Arabia, the largest producer of oil in the world, is a full participant now. US dollars are not compatible on Project mBridge. Look at it as a way to trade central bank digital currencies back and forth with one another, free from the Western intermediary banks, no SWIFT. And going back to gold and oil being remonetized, the first two trades that we saw that were deemed test trades in 2023 were between China and the United Arab Emirates in gold and oil using digital yuan. They both worked. So mBridge is in its most basic form right now, operational, with a whole lot more expected to be brought to the fold. But I want to bring in both the BIS in this and then talk about the unit token, because it's really important. And now maybe I'm thinking a little too deep here, but maybe I'm not. I want to go back to 2017 for just one moment to frame the way that I think the BIS operates.
Real quick break here, guys. If you are a mining investor, you are without question familiar with the Golden Triangle region in British Columbia. This is one of the most prolific mining regions in the world due to its vast deposits of gold, silver, and copper. Now, for the last 4 years, Dolly Varden Silver has been busy expanding their high-grade silver deposit in the Triangle, and they are backed by some of the smartest investors in the silver business, including the legendary Eric Sprott, Hecla Mining, US Global Investors, Fidelity, Delbrook Capital, Sprott Resource Corp, and more. If you are curious why the smartest money in the silver business is cozying up to Dolly Varden Silver, then hit the link beneath this video.
When the Bundesbank made a really big public admission in 2017 after 2 or 3 years of trying to get their gold back from the United States. So, most of the gold in the world has been held in the U.S. and in England. Bank of England giving direct access to the LBMA, the New York Fed direct access to the COMEX, stable jurisdictions, Western rule of law, LOL, all of those things that are important, right? And so what we have seen, if we go back to 2017, we see the Bundesbank say, give us back all our gold. But shortly after that, the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, All of these banks said the same thing to the BIS. After 6 years of gold going straight down, they said, give us back, or to the, excuse me, not to the BIS, to the Bank of England, the New York Fed, give us back our gold, which was very strange. The following year in 2017, those same banks, or 2018 rather, those same central banks bought more gold as a group together than they did in the 60 years previously combined. And then in 2019, the following year, those numbers were up 100%. And then miraculously, coincidentally, the BIS said, oh, by the way, guys, gold is now the only other central bank tier 1 asset. Now, you know that they informed the Western central banks of Europe, go ahead and start gobbling up your gold and bring it home from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. We're going to reclassify it tier 1. So let's fast forward to where we are right now. There was a big meeting that happened that coincided with the G7 meeting in Italy just a few weeks ago. At the beginning of the year, we were told that there would be 200 BRICS meetings leading up to the one big one in October, where we find out all the new things that the BRICS have agreed upon, including which countries have joined. This meeting in Novograd, Russia, was the same week as the G7 meeting, and the Royal Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was invited to the G7 meeting. And they turned it down, said, I'm busy, guys. But he sent his finance ministers to the meeting in Novograd. Now, remember what I said about the BIS. I believe they told all these central banks 2.5, 3 years in advance, get your gold home and start buying it. We're going to reclassify it tier 1. That isn't coincidental, the way that it all worked out. Out of nowhere, they massively buy and bring back their gold after years and years and years of it being held in the West. And then all of a sudden it's revalued tier 1. Well, let's talk about what happened at this meeting in Novograd. 2 things that are worth talking about. Number 1, they came out and said 59 countries have formally applied to BRICS. We don't know which ones they are. But number 2 was 2 meetings that were announced by Dilma Rousseff. Dilma was the former president of Brazil. She's the head of the BRICS New Development Bank. Call that very similar to the IMF. And she came out and said that I had 2 meetings on the sidelines with Sergei Glaziev and Putin. The reason that in probably 3,000 YouTube videos over the last 4 years that I have said that the BRICS will have a commodity-backed currency is because he said it. He is the architect of this new system. He is the Eurasian Economic Union chief economic advisor. He's high up in the Russian finance ministry, and he is the architect of this new system. And she said, we've agreed in principle to a new system called the unit that will be traded over Project mBridge. Now, the unit, she says, will be 40% gold. 40% gold, not a basket of commodities like Glaziev originally said. Probably too hard to value all of those individual commodities. But it will be 40% gold in kilobar form, deliverable upon request, and 60% BRICS plus local currencies. Now let's go back to the BIS and the way that they do things. A simple Google search will show you that within the last 2 years, Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Argentina, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia just a few weeks ago, Hungary, Belgium, Egypt just a few weeks ago, Romania, Nigeria just a few weeks ago, Poland, Ghana, India. India bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year in the first 4 months of this year, brought it all home. Plus 100 metric tons they've held at the Bank of England since 1991, brought it all home. Turkey, France, Serbia, Venezuela, Algeria, Cameroon, South Africa just a few weeks ago, and Czechoslovakia, and many more, all brought their gold home. Now, why? Now, the conventional wisdom would be it's the weaponization of the treasury market, or the way that Venezuela didn't get their gold back from the Bank of England, right? Where is the trust in the Western system? It can be taken, right? That's the easy answer, but it's not the right one, in my opinion, because in reading the white paper of the unit, it says that the gold that will be used to make the unit token and the 60% basket of local BRICS currencies will all be put into escrow accounts to create the unit token within the borders of the countries that possess it. In other words, they don't all need to send their gold to Moscow or Beijing to a central unit. They will all be able to hold their own gold and their own basket of currencies of the local BRICS countries in an escrow account that will be independently and frequently audited with massive penalties for deviation from the protocol of the unit infrastructure. In other words, what the project mBridge is allowing. Now think about the BIS. I think the BIS said, here's our new settlement token for the BRICS. You guys all want to bring your gold home because you're going to hold it within your own borders, which will eviscerate the demand for U.S. dollar stockpiling and eviscerate the demand for U.S. Treasury stockpiling. Instead, they will all accumulate their local currencies and others. And this is why in a video I did with Vince Lancy, he thinks that China and Russia will back their currencies by gold so that they comprise the majority of the 60% backing in the currency portion of the unit tokens. But the currency and the gold is held in an escrow account within their own borders and audited independently. So the BIS probably said to all of these countries, get your gold home, you guys, and keep buying it. The central banks are buying it hand over fist, and all we see is repatriation. So mBridge will allow all of these countries to maintain their own ecosystem in central bank digital currencies. If you take all the global GDP and give it a percentage of 98%, or the countries that make 98% of the global GDP, every one of them has a central bank digital currency, either operational or in development, near operation. So all of these countries will have their own monetary autonomy, their own central bank digital currencies, like the digital yuan, the digital ruble, the digital real. There won't be a central common BRICS currency, but a central settlement currency. Everyone has their own central bank digital currency that will trade over mBridge to buy things with all of these other currencies, with all of these other countries, free from the Western intermediary bank or the SWIFT intervention. And if indeed it comes to settling for things like energy, they will use the new token called the unit, which Delma Rousseff said we have agreed in principle to doing this, 40% gold backing and deliverable upon request. They have scheduled a meeting in China in September to ratify it with potential of bringing it out in October. I will just simply say this to you. If indeed this happens, the fuse has been lit just like that. We've lost the hegemony already as oil sales are being done in other currencies, in Saudi Arabia not signing the re-exclusive deal that they've had in place for 50 years, saying we're going to trade in all currencies, dollars included. But the supremacy, that fuse will be lit if they come out and say, we have agreed on a new settlement currency for oil, and it is called, or energy, it is called the unit, gold-backed and BRICS plus currency-backed. The need for these countries to continue to hold dollars and or treasuries dies that day. And that becomes the moment where things start to rapidly accelerate. So it's as big of a deal as anything I've ever seen. And the lack of talking about it, the lack of any Western media discussion of it is criminal, in my opinion. Now, granted, nothing has been decided. But when you have the former president of Brazil and the head of the BRICS New Development Bank with Sergei Glaziev and Putin, who said we've agreed in principle, I believe it, because everything else that they have said that I've reported on for 4 years, it's all come true. This will come true too. This is why the central banks are buying the hell out of gold, using the suppression of the Western market to run cover for it. And more importantly, this is why just in a simple Google search, 30 central banks have repatriated their gold within the last 2 years. And there's a lot more because they know they can hold it within their own borders, remove counterparty risk, cut out the Western influence, cut out SWIFT, cut out the dollar, the chance of weaponization or confiscation of assets, and have their own ecosystem that they will maintain with the ability to settle oil in this new unit. And I think it's the biggest thing I've seen maybe in my career if it plays out this way. But there's no other reason for the BIS to reclassify gold tier 1 and to tell all of these central banks quietly, buy it and bring it home. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Follow the crumbs. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to see the crumbs they're laying at our feet.
So the unit is the linchpin because the biggest resistance argument to the topic of de-dollarization is that, sure, countries can go ahead and trade in their own currency, but what's Saudi Arabia going to do with a bunch of rupees? Like it's useless to them, right? And so you can't just abandon the US dollar because you can't abandon the rails on which international trade is done. That is what Project mBridge facilitates, is a new railway system where this unit
that is not compatible with dollars, that Saudi Arabia is a full participant in. Yes, it is 100%.
Okay, which is the real world reserve currency being energy, you could say. And this allows countries to settle transactions in their own currency. And I was wondering, does this like reduce or delete the need for an international unit of settlement? That's what I was wondering about. And you're saying, no, this is the unit. This is the 40% gold, 60% basket of currencies that will be used as the trade currency. So this is not a reserve currency. And that's why
Vince says he thinks Russia and China will do all they can to back their own local currencies with gold to whatever degree they can, so that it comprises the majority of the allocation in the 60% basket. And they can trade their currencies over mBridge to whatever degree they want. Okay, I have enough rupee. Now I want unit for whatever else we're going to sell. It gives them alternatives without one central currency. It allows everyone to manage their own affairs prudently.